The disappearance, it was an ordinary summer Sunday in August 2016. Tserin, a 9-year-old girl, was doing something she did every single day, helping her grandfather take care of the goats in the mountains of Siberia, Russia. Tserin's family belonged to the Tuva ethnic group, a traditional people who still preserve ancestral customs of animal herding across the vast frozen expanses of Siberia. For her, walking through dense forests and mountainous terrain was nothing new. It was her backyard, her familiar world. But that day, something went terribly wrong. As the goats grazed on the vegetation-covered slopes, Tserin wandered just a few meters away from her grandfather. It was only a matter of minutes. Maybe she followed a stray goat. Maybe something in the forest caught her attention. No one knows for sure. When her grandfather turned to call her, Tserin had vanished. He shouted her name. Once, twice, 10 times. Only the echo of the mountains answered. The Siberian forest had swallowed the girl as if she had never existed. Panic hit instantly. The grandfather ran back to the village, stumbling over rocks, his heart pounding in his chest. Within minutes, the entire community was mobilized. Within hours, official search teams had arrived from neighboring towns. More than 200 people combed the forests. Helicopters flew overhead. Search dogs followed trails. Volunteers shouted Tserin's name until their voices gave out. But the Siberian taiga is unforgiving. Thousands of square kilometers of dense forest, steep mountains, frozen rivers, and deadly ravines. It is a place where even experienced adults get lost and are never found again. Days passed, 1, 2, 3 days. Not a single sign of the girl. Night temperatures dropped below zero. Bears and wolves roamed the region. There were no trails, no shelter, no food. Statistics were brutal. Children lost in such conditions rarely survive more than 48 hours. By the 4th day, some rescuers began to lose hope. They were searching for a body, not a survivor. Tserin's mother refused to give up. For 9 days and 9 nights she did not sleep, walking through the forest, shouting her daughter's name until her voice completely faded. But the forest remained silent. And then, on the 9th day, something extraordinary happened. The survival while hundreds of people searched for her. Tserin was fighting her own silent battle against nature, and what she did to survive defies everything we know about human limits, especially for a 9-year-old child. In the first moments after realizing she was lost, Tserin did something most children wouldn't do. She didn't panic. Growing up in Siberia had taught her lessons no classroom ever could. She knew she needed to move, but she also knew she couldn't run without direction. So she began to walk, always following the same general direction, trying to find something familiar, a landmark, a hill, anything she recognized. But the Siberian forest is a living labyrinth. Every tree looks identical to the last. Every hill reveals only more forests on the other side. The first night was the most terrifying. Tserin curled up at the base of a large tree, hugging her knees to her chest. The sounds of the forest at night are different, distant howls, branches snapping, the wind blowing through the pines like a ghostly moan. Secret. Creed. Of course, she cried. She was a 9-year-old child, alone, in the dark, cold and hungry. But when morning came, she stood up and kept walking. Hunger came quickly. By the second day, her stomach hurt so much she could barely think. That's when her survival instincts kicked in. Tserin began eating grass. She chewed tree leaves, even if they were bitter. She found wild berries. Some were edible, others made her vomit, but she quickly learned which ones to avoid. Thirst was easier to solve. Siberia is full of streams fed by icy mountain water. Tserin drank straight from them, ignoring the cold that made her teeth ache and her throat burn. But the nighttime cold was her worst enemy. Tserin used her only weapon against hypothermia: constant movement. She refused to stay still. Even exhausted, she swung her arms, stomped her feet, anything to keep the blood circulating. On one particularly freezing night, she found a hollow log and crawled inside. The cramped space trapped a bit of her body heat. She spent the entire night there, shivering violently, but alive. On the 5th day, Tserin found something that changed everything. Tracks of wild goats. Her 9-year-old mind made a brilliant connection. Goats need water, vegetation, and eventually descend to lower areas. If she followed the goats, she might find her way back. She followed the tracks for 2 whole days. During this entire time, Tserin never stopped talking. She talked to herself, sang songs her mother taught her, recited stories she heard from the elders. It wasn't madness, it was strategy. Keep the mind busy, keep despair away. Remember she was human and not just another lost animal in the forest. By the 7th day, her feet were raw, her clothes shredded by branches, her face scratched and dirty. She had lost so much weight that her clothes hung loosely from her body, but her eyes still held that spark, the stubborn refusal to give up. On the 8th day, she found something she recognized, a specific type of flower that only grew near the area where her family lived. Her heart raced. She was close. She had to be close. She ran, stumbled, stood up, ran again. Exhaustion no longer mattered. Pain no longer mattered. She was almost home. And then, on the morning of the 9th day, she heard the most beautiful sound she had ever heard in her life. Human voices. The impossible rescue. Ironically, the person who found Tserin was not one of the organized search teams with all their technology and training. It was a local hunter who knew that specific part of the forest like the back of his hand. He was checking his traps when he heard a faint sound, something between a cry and a shout. At first, he thought it was a wounded animal, but there was something human in that sound. The hunter followed the noise, and then he saw her, a small, dirty, staggering figure emerging from between the trees like a ghost. For a moment, he couldn't process what he was seeing. Could it really be the girl everyone was searching for? The girl who should have been dead for days? Tserin saw the man and simply collapsed. Her legs couldn't hold her anymore. She had used every last bit of energy just to keep moving. The hunter ran to her, took off his coat and wrapped it around her. She was freezing, trembling, dehydrated, malnourished. But she was alive, miraculously, impossibly, inexplicably alive. He grabbed his radio and shouted to the search base, "I found her. She's alive. Repeat, The girl is alive. On the other end, total silence for 3 seconds. No one believed it. Then, an explosion of voices, screams, tears. Helicopters changed direction immediately. Medical teams prepared themselves. The news spread through the village like wildfire. Tserin's mother, who had not eaten or slept properly for 9 days, collapsed to her knees and cried like she had never cried before. They weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of pure relief, impossible gratitude, the maternal love that had refused to accept the worst. When the rescue helicopter landed and paramedics examined Tserin, they were shocked. She was in poor condition, dehydrated, malnourished, mildly hypothermic, with injured feet and scratches all over her body. But she had no serious injuries, no broken bones, no major infections, no signs of animal attacks. It was as if the forest had decided to spare her. In the hospital, doctors examined her thoroughly. She had lost nearly 5 kilograms, a lot for such a small child. She was severely malnourished, but her body had gone into survival mode, conserving energy, slowing down non-essential processes. The most impressive thing was her mental state. Psychologists expected severe trauma, nightmares, paralyzing anxiety. But Tserin was surprisingly calm. She described her experience with clear, almost clinical detail. She spoke about how she decided to follow the goats, how she found water, how she protected herself from the cold. One psychologist later said, "She didn't survive by luck. She survived because she made smart decisions, one after another, for 9 straight days." It's a resilience we rarely see even in adults. The legacy of survival, the story of Tserin Dopcha, spread across the world. International newspapers covered the case. Survival experts analyzed every decision she made. Psychologists studied her mental resilience. She became an unlikely symbol of human strength. But for Tserin, life simply went on. She returned to school. She went back to helping her grandfather with the goats. Though now he never let her out of his sight, she went back to being just a 9-year-old girl living in the Siberian mountains. When journalists asked how she managed to survive, Tserin gave simple answers. "I just kept walking. I couldn't give up because I knew my mother was looking for me." This simplicity hides something profound. Tserin possessed something many adults lose over time. The absolute refusal to accept defeat. She didn't know statistics about missing children. She didn't know the mortality rates of the Siberian wilderness. She had no awareness of how impossible her situation really was. And maybe it was exactly that ignorance that saved her. She didn't know she was supposed to give up, so she simply didn't. Survival experts point out several things Tserin did correctly, often by instinct. She kept mobbing. Hypothermia kills quickly when you stop moving. She constantly found water. Dehydration kills faster than hunger. She ate whatever she could, even if inadequate. It kept something in her stomach. She followed animal tracks. Wild goats led her back towards civilization. She maintained hope. Despair kills just as surely as cold. But perhaps the most powerful lesson in Tserin's story isn't technical. It's human. She shows us that inside every person, even a 9-year-old child, there is a survival force that defies logic and statistics. When everything seems lost, when logic says it is impossible, the human spirit can find a way. Tserin's mother, in an interview months later, said something that sums it all up. "I always knew my daughter was alive, a mother knows. And she always knew I wouldn't stop looking. That shared knowing kept us both alive during those 9 days." Today, Tserin is a young adult. The experience marked her, but it didn't break her. She is more cautious in the forest now, but she is not afraid of it. The Siberian taiga is still her home. When asked if she has nightmares about those 9 days, she shakes her head. "Sometimes I dream of the forest, but they're not nightmares. They're just memories. The forest tested me and I passed the test. Now I'm not afraid of anything." And perhaps that is the real story here. It is not about a girl who almost died. It is about a girl who discovered at 9 years old that she was stronger than she ever imagined. The Siberian forest is still there, vast and unforgiving as always. But now it carries the memory of a small girl who refused to be defeated. And that refusal, that stubborn determination to keep breathing, keep walking, keep hoping. That is what it means to be human in its most essential form. Did Tserin survive? Because she was strong? Yes. Because she was smart? Yes. Because she was lucky? Maybe. But above all, she survived because she simply decided she would survive. And sometimes, in life, that decision is all that matters.